I thank the representative of Peru for his statement. I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank the Assistant Secretary General, Oscar Fernandez Taranco, the African Union Commissioner, Smail Shergi, as well as Chair of the Burundi Country-Specific Configuration of the PBC, Ambassador of Switzerland, Mr. Jörg Lauber, for their very comprehensive briefings. Frankly speaking, we don't quite understand the motives that led our colleagues in the Security Councils to insist on holding this meeting. As is well known, the international community has luckily not received any worrying news from Burundi for a long time now, and from our colleagues diplomats in Bujumbura, we know that the situation in the country is calm and there is a trend towards normalization. We also note the stable security situation, the significant reduction in violence, including the number of attacks on civilian infrastructure by the radical opposition. Refugees from neighboring countries are returning to Burundi, and the speed of that process depends only on the availability of resources to provide them with what they need upon return. Let us once again remind you of a key event for the intra-Burundian settlements that took place last year, namely the constitutional reform. That referendum took place in a calm environment with the participation of the overwhelming majority of the population of Burundi. We would like to remind everyone present here that the constitutional reform was supported by the majority of voters, over 73%, and the referendum itself was preceded by a democratic and transparent information campaign. Mr. President, we once again call for respect for Burundi's sovereignty. The Russian Federation categorically opposes interference in the internal affairs of that country, including in the context of the parliamentary and presidential elections slated for 2020. As is known, the people of Burundi are already actively preparing for these elections. More specifically, plans are already in place to finance the elections from the national budgets. The Independent National Electoral Commission is up and running, and the parliament adopted changes to the electoral code with an overwhelming majority. Another important thing is that there's ongoing dialogue between the political forces of the country, one sign of which is the recent adoption of the Kayanza Roadmap by the majority of political parties. We call on the authorities in opposition to refrain from negative rhetoric against one another and focus on preparing for elections. The initial cause of disagreement between Burundian political forces is long gone. The acting president, Pierre Nkurunziza, has repeatedly made assurances that he will not run in the upcoming elections. We believe that the efforts of Burundi's national government in the socioeconomic sphere are particularly in need of support today. In that regard, we welcome the adoption by the country's authorities of the National Plan for Development for 2018-2027. We believe that further progress here could be facilitated by the lifting of economic sanctions against Burundi, fully in accordance with the decisions taken at the AU summits in Nouakchott in July 2018 and in Addis Ababa in February of this year. Overall, we are convinced that the situation in Burundi does not pose a threat to international peace and security. Keeping the Council's attention on Burundi has long been counterproductive, and our discussions here are only helping the unreconciled opposition to complicate the internal political process in that country. There is a need to take the country off the already overburdened agenda of the Security Council. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.